Got fucking Sachi time. Let's go. Oh god, why do I start my sentences like and then make it sound like it's something provocative, but it's really not. That's how I talk. Anyway, now then, as for Komine Sachi, dressed, I almost read that as depressed for some reason. I was like, wow, what happened? Dressed, as always, in an impeccably neatly made uniform, she was cheerfully dragging a cart that held an enormous travel bag up and down the aisles of a hardware store. At a glance, one might have assumed that she was a great servant for some... why'd I add great? I don't care, we're doing it. From some mansion who'd been given leave and was now buying the things she'd need for her journey back home. But the items she was purchasing were far too peculiar. Butane gas for use with camp stoves, large quantities of aluminum foil, boxes of bath salts, aluminum plumbing pipes, bags of fertilizer from the gardening department, 3 large plastic boxes, the list went on. After grabbing item after item off the shelves, seemingly at random, she finished up by seizing the store pharmacy's entire supply of bandages and disinfectant.
抗生物質製剤と局所麻酔剤も買ったし、なんだろう、まだ何か足りないような気がする。
I feel like you're good. With preparations of this sort, it always felt like something was missing, no matter how much you bought. But if you went overboard, transporting and storing your gear would become a major issue. The key was identifying the things that you absolutely needed, then packing them as compactly as possible. That meant leaving out anything you could obtain on-site or replace with a substitute of some kind. Even medical supplies were no exception. As long as you had painkillers for external injuries and disinfectant for external wounds, you could figure out the rest as you went. After carefully reviewing everything she'd bought at the hardware store, Sachi proceeded to divide the supplies among the 3 plastic boxes. The plan was to create 3 emergency bug-out boxes to be placed in various locations. She'd leave one of them among bushes in a small park just across the road. Once the rest of her gear was hidden along their escape routes, Sachi herself would be able to travel rather lightly. Should she ever need to resupply, she could do so quickly by retrieving her caches from their hidden spots. I like this idea. This was the Project Chipmunk to which Thanatos had referred. The boxes themselves didn't take long to pack. All she now had to do was hide them in various crucial locations. And then stage 1 of the plan would be complete. Right here. First up was the little park. There were a number of tiny green spaces like this one in the neighborhood, often serving no real reason or purpose. Many contained storage sheds full of firefighting gear, emergency equipment, and some even hid entrances to underground facilities. But for the most part, they weren't designed as recreational spaces for children or families. That meant the box she left here almost certainly wouldn't be discovered, unless some pervert happened to stumble across it while dragging a corpse into the bushes. Wait, whoa. Hold on, what? A pervert? Like, what do you think he's gonna do? Oh, knows. Of the remaining boxes, she'd leave one in the coin lockers of a baseball stadium near the her anticipated escape route, then pack the other in a cardboard box and have a shipping service send it to a conveniently located office. That made 2 resupply caches she could easily retrieve, and 1 backup cache with the logistics in the hands of a third party. She'd have 3 different cards she could play at any given moment, depending on how the situation developed. Any Transpiration Corps officer worth their salt would would set up at least this much redundancy in advance. It's going to be perfectly fine. Preparing for the unforeseen was a task that involved dwelling endlessly on worst-case scenarios. Having completed her initial preparations, Sachi had paused briefly to consider her next move. And in that moment, a sudden wave of anxiety and fear had washed over her. Inevitably, her mind had returned to the most basic of questions. Were they really going to pull this off? Was this really going to work? We have the team. It's fine. It wasn't that she had any complaints regarding Project Chipmunk. She was second-guessing her own choices, asking herself if enlisting in this war had been the correct decision. It was always the correct decision. Her faith in this mission was all she had to stand on. But as she labored away alone, that faith began to tremble beneath her feet. She had to carry out her duties all alone. That solitude gave rise to fear. But she knew what to do. Kamine Sachi knew exactly what to do. When you're about to fall apart, go ahead and eat some lunch. I was going to say grab a bite to eat, but those were the words of Suo Amine, Warrant Officer First Class, who provisioned all of the Mahama Women's Corps' meals. She had spoken to them this morning while handing Sachi her box lunch. When your heart falters, take a moment to nourish your body. While you fill your empty belly, think of the comrades you've shared meals with. Remember the faces you've seen around your table. As she stood, anxiously hugging the shoulders of her maid uniform, Sachi's gaze had found its way to the fighter pilot lunch that Amine had packed for her. Reaching out to the box, Sachi retrieved a long sushi roll and took a big bite. Within moments, she could feel the anxiety in her heart begin to melt away. See? Look at what food does for you. Food's the cure for everything. When she closed her eyes, she could see her friends all just gathered around the dinner table. The image was vivid and clear. What sort of expressions did they have on their faces? They were smiling. Just pet all of them. Pet all of them. Except Michiru. Every last one of them. It was the very picture of a harmonious family. This was why Sachi had chosen to fight. She'd do anything for these people, for the chance to bask in this warmth again. The flavor of cucumber, dried gourd, tuna and mayonnaise, natto, and salmon spread slowly across her tongue. It was the familiar taste of Warrant Officer Suo's cooking. Making quick work of the sushi, Sachi washed it all down with the pleasantly fizzy cider, quote, quote. By the time she finished, not even the slightest tinge of fear remained in her heart. God damn. That did that much? Shit, man. So long as you can remember the smiles of your comrades, you could keep on fighting. With that conviction burning in her breast, Sachi marched off toward her post with a spring in her step. Huh. Okay. Oh, Jesus. Fucking Adventures of Yumiko over here in the goddamn houseboat. And as many of her field agents were struggling with their doubts and fears, Sakaki Yumiko was sitting alone in the houseboat with her headphones on, listening to music on her laptop. Everyone was preparing for combat. This was an absolutely crucial period of time. And for that reason, it was important to rest when she had the chance. She's just kicking it back till shit goes down. The gentle melodies flowing into her ears were immensely soothing. When she focused on them, it almost felt as if the chaotic events that would soon be unfolding were already a thing of the past. But just as Yumiko was starting to relax in earnest, she noticed a peculiar sound underneath the music. What do you mean? What the hell? Almost felt like a quiet voice was whispering something to her through her headphones. That's what I heard. It was very, vague. It's just very small. Is it saying senpai? Hold on, can I like go back and was it just her imagination? She thought she could hear someone resentfully speaking the word senpai. Okay, so I did hear that. I'm not insane. She'd heard the absurd or old urban legends about cursed CDs and such, but surely there had to be some other explanation. Nah, you're fine. We've moved on to cursed Blu-rays now. Straining her ears, she tried to focus on the peculiar sound. Oh. Oh my god. Letting out a shriek that she wouldn't have believed herself capable of producing, Yumiko tumbled backward out of the chair she'd been seated in. Fucking... You just fucking with us again? I want to hear that again. Yumiko just fucking losing her shit. Tangled up in a jumble of intense emotions, Yumiko struggled just to speak coherently. But by the time she forced out the word for the phrase, good lord, her mind had finally managed to resume something resembling functional activity, unlike what my brain does on a daily basis. Lifting herself up off the floor, where she'd been lying on her back like a wrestler who'd just been hit with a German suplex, she hurriedly pulled her skirt back into place. Oh. Kazuki. She has eyes everywhere. Like, where do you want them to be? I know you want them on her herself, but being called plain and boring all the time, it started to get under her skin. Perhaps it was a bit too silly to start off by changing her underwear. But no one had the right to mock her for trying. I respect it. I wish I saw it, though. I wish I saw it. Clearing her throat, she tried to push these thoughts from her mind. I'm really interested about these panties right now. I just assumed she was fucking with you. Oh, it wasn't just to fuck with her. I wanted that to be the sole reason. Then why in God's name hadn't she said so in the first place? Oh boy. Okay, good, because we already have our hands fucking full of everything. Oh, we even have Plan C? What's this Plan C? It's always good to have 47 fallback plans.
まあでしょうね。人員、機材、時間を考慮すれば、それこそいくらでもプランは立てられる。
中には誰かを犠牲にしてでも目的を達するプランもあります。他の子たちには説明できません。
The sacrifice will of course be Michiru, because even if we sacrifice Michiru, it's not like she'll die.
時には最善どころか次事前を捨てるケースもあるでしょう。犠牲を出す前にミッションフェイルドのタイミングを決めるのはあなたに一任します。つまり作戦は立案するし、状況に応じてミッションのアペンド指示は出しますが、それに従うか否かはあなたの判断に委ねますということです。
This is a lot of pressure on our commander.
あなたはアナライザーであり、アドバイザーであって、命令はしないということね。
Nah, man, that's up to you.
その通り。 所詮私は機械です。機械の出す答えというのはいつだってその時はそれが最善だったという結果になりがちです。
Don't worry, Kazuki. Hopefully one day we won't just make you won't just be a computer. God, I hope so.
多くの意味を含めた遺恨を残さないという意味でも、最後は現場の人間の判断に委ねるのが一番間違いがありません。
遠回しな説明はいらないわ。結局はどんな結果になろうと現場指揮官の私の責任ということでしょ。
That's your part in this, yes.
今朝みんなを送り出す時に訓示をしたのだけれど、私も同じようなことをみんなに言ったわ。イリスさんに松島さん、スオーさんに小峰さん、それぞれが自己の責任において行動しているように、私は私の責任で指令を出します。あなたのせいにはしないから安心して。
Just Kazuki being like, listen, I told you I gave you true analysis. I gave you everything you needed, and you failed me. Just...
そう。では、新しく追加されたプラン C から F までの概要はあなたのパソコンに転送しておきます。軽くでいいから目を通しておいて。
Can I see them as well?
ねえ、タナトスさん。あなた途中でいなくなるの
We woo?
あら、気がついた？
No, don't leave me. We've only just been reunited.
プランはできるだけ単純に2通りって絞ったのに、今の段階になってプランを増やして、しかもそれを私に説明しておく必要って、あなたがいなくなる以外で何かある？
I should have realized that myself, but I'm just so used to having Kazuki like part of this, like this whole mission thing. I'm just never really thought about it. Just her just fucking off and dealing with something else.
こうしてわざわざ連絡してきて、タナトスシステムには依存するな。すべては自己判断だと釘を刺したのも、あなたがいなくなるからでしょ。
その可能性もあるというだけの話よ。必ずいなくなると決まっているわけではないわ。
Ain't that just terrifying?
忘れていないとは思うけれど、今こうしてあなたと会話している私はタナトスシステムの一部です。いつ私の行動がメインシステムに発見されて停止させられるかわかりません。
No, you can overpower the main system. Jesus, just overpower yourself.
待って、その情報私聞いた？
どの情報？
あなたがタナトスシステムの一部だという話は聞いていたけれど、今回の行動がメインシステムの認知していない行動で発覚すれば阻止されるという話は聞いてないわよ。
Yeah, that wasn't part of the deal. That wasn't explained.
国家の危機に対して美浜の学生たちを利用するなんてプロポーズが認可されるはずないじゃない。
So, I might get shut down during this whole process. But you guys with me?
当然メインのシステムには内密だし、もし発覚すれば作戦の即時中止と私の停止命令が出ます。
そんな大事なことを。
I feel like she said her piece.
別に隠すつもりはなかったし、聞かれたら答えるつもりだったわ。
The old, you could have asked me.
それに、私がいなければ何もできないわけでもないでしょ。事実、私がいなければ何もしなかった？
She's right.
それは。
Like we have all the resources, we have the plans, 6 plans. Like
私が健在なうちは出せる情報と提案は出します。けれど、私がいつまでも健在だとは思わないことと、私を信用しすぎないこと。
I fucking trust you with my damn life, Kazuki. I trust you.
言った通り、電子制御に頼りすぎれば必ずミスが出ます。私にできることは、情報の収集、分析、そして提案。この3つだけ。メインシステムが国家を手足とするように、サブシステムである私の手足があなたたちということ。そして、時には頭で考えるより体が先に動くこともある。お分かり？
Dude, that's how it is, man. That's how it is sometimes with my mouth when I try talking. and my brain hasn't sent the signals yet. But it also happens in reverse, where the brain sends the signals and fucks me over because brain things.
そんなに不安そうにしなくても、私との連絡がつかなくなることを織り込んだプランも用意してあるわ。ちなみにプラン D では電車を逃走に使用するケースが考慮されているけれど、さすがの私でも信号切り替えや乗り入れは人間が操作しているからコントロールはできないわ。
So we take out the operators. Oh my
そ
god.
れと万が一タナトスシステムがヒースオスロの手に落ちたりしたような場合は、間違っても私を助けようなどとは思わないこと。
Damn it, she caught on to my plan, my backup plan in case she actually did get kidnapped. Fuck.
いい？今回の作戦で切り捨てていいものがあるとすれば、それは私だけ。わかった？
We've already done that before. I don't want to lose her again. It hurt me too much.
スオさんはあなたを見捨てることに大反対するでしょうね。
See? Yeah, that's... Ooh. Second time?
それを言いくるめるのもあなたの仕事よ。
Did that be like a, no, I'm not running away again. Let's save her, like sort of situation? You know that would happen. You know it would happen.
嫌な仕事ね。
だからいいお給料がもらえるのよ、司令官って。
That's why they get tons of money.
そうが一番気楽だって言われてるわけが分かった気がするわ。
Oh, Jesus, where am I now? Ooh, hello? Stomping around. What are you doing? At the same time this conversation was taking place, Matsushima Michiru was waiting in the park where her meeting would take place, staring intently at a housewife who was walking her dog. And you're just creeping around. I gotta get in there and hate them before they can hate me. Oh my god. The job itself was a simple errand. She just had to be in a certain place at a certain time to receive certain items from a certain person. The location itself wasn't an issue. It was a public park with plenty of foot traffic, so she probably wasn't going to get shot dead on the spot. God damn. That said, the person she was waiting for was an employee of Yuji's company. From what she heard, it sounded like the kind of place that went out of its way to hire people with skeletons in their closet. So the person she'd be meeting here almost certainly had some kind of ugliness in their past. More to the point, she was here to pick up the belongings of a wanted man from this possibly dangerous person. It was easy to imagine how things could go wrong. The longer she spent turning these thoughts around in her mind, the more everything around her started to look suspicious. By this point, she'd managed to become outright paranoid. That's why she's skeeving around. That's what I do every time I step outside and see anybody.
少し落ち着きなさいよ。君、すごい汗だよ。
Hello, other personality Michiru and not Michiru. The other Michiru. God damn it.
あのおばちゃん、工作員だ。犬の散歩に見せかけて、私のことずっと監視してるんだ。
That'd be amazing if she was, though.
何を根拠に。だって、犬の散歩なのに、あのおばちゃん、ずっと犬を抱っこしてる。変。絶対変。あれじゃ散歩の意味ない。
What the fuck? That's what's happening? I mean, she's walking.
まあ、言いたいことはわかるけど、そういう人もいるって。
What the who's why? What's the point? Now I'm fucking irritated.
きっとあの手に下げたビニール袋の中にコルトを隠してるわね。そんで私が少しでも隙を見せたらズドンってする気だよ。間違いない。
You could literally get blasted right in the face and you'd be perfectly fine, Michiru. Something stupid would save you because the universe just protects you. Like, honestly.
ビニール袋の中身は犬の排泄物だと思うけどな。
Just throws shit at Michiru.
きっとその犬のうんちを私に投げつけて殺す気だ。
She need to throw a lot unless she aims directly right in your mouth and you choke on dog shit.
落ち着きなさい。確かに死にたい気持ちにはなるかもしれないけれど、死にはしないから。っていうか、あのおばちゃんは関係ないから。じゃあなんでずっと私のことじっと見てるの？
You're being fucking weird. I'd look at you too.
青い顔して冷や汗だらだら垂れ流しながらずーっと独り言をブツブツ言ってるからじゃない？そのうち通報されるわね。パトカーと救急車、どっちが迎えに来るのかしら。
I would guess the police would show up and then the ambulance for support.
何よそれ。
Or the other way around. Either one.
あ、車が来たわ。
Oh god, you hear the car.
パトカー、救急車、どっち？
Woo! Just
同じものが見えてるくせに。わかってるわよ。ちょっとボケてみただけじゃん。
Asahi Clean LLC. There it is. A dingy white van had pulled up to the curb just outside the park. Blue letters on its side spelled out the name of the certain janitorial company, the public face of Yuji's employer. The sight of small white automobiles like this one tended to bring back some unpleasant memories for Michiru. But in any case, it seemed that the person she was waiting for had finally arrived.
どうしよう。ちょっと怖い。
I'm intrigued and scared.
どうする？私が行こうか。いい。なんか最近頼ってばっかだったし、自分で行く。
It's fine, Michiru.
そう。じゃあ頑張って。
Everything was gonna be fine. That's what I always say. She was, after all, a tsundere. That meant no one could resist her charms. Nothing could compete with the power of a tsundere. She's right a lot. That's you know, that's why tsundere is one of the most popular archetypes, you know? That's why in literally every anime, visual novel, whatever, and the tsundere is there, she's like one of the most popular. Take the domestic cat, for example. This was an animal with no real redeeming features except its own cuteness. How, one might ask, had such a creature not been wiped out long ago? And the answer was simple. Cats survived because they were tsunderes. They are. Perhaps it wasn't especially dignified for human beings to lower themselves to the feline's level in order to make their way through this cold, hard world. But the way she saw it, her life hadn't been too bad after she chose to take on her current role. And so, Matsushima Michiru's faith was firm. The power of tsundere would see her through. Is that why she never can die? Just because of the power of the tsundere?
ちょっと、あんたが運びや。
Like it's just a fucking force field that prevents her from dying? Or it's probably just her luck.
おい、年上に向かってあんたとはなんだこれ。
God damn it. Isn't the... God damn it, I remember that name. Matsushima Michiru's faith was shaken. Instantly. Within the first 3 seconds of this conversation, her rock-solid belief in tsundere supremacy had given way beneath her. She was in fact so terrified that she wanted to cry. She just retreated back into herself. And then other Michiru's like, suddenly overwhelmed by the anxiety that had been building up inside her for some time, Michiru retreated inside her own mind, forcing her other self to take over. I like that little thing they did where it's just like, they just split apart and then.
なんだ何をブツブツ言ってやがる。
ああ、ごめんなさい。私、海外が長かったから、日本語って苦手なのよね。
I mean, you spent some time overseas.
まあいいさ。年下のくせに年上をあんた呼ばわりするやつは他にも心当たりがある。そういう生き方しかできないやつがいるのも分かってる。
You people!
荷物を持ってきてくれた？
ああ、いつも通り後ろの荷室に入ってるよ。
Like always.
どれがそうなの？なんだか荷物だらけでよくわからない。というか、この扉どうやって開けるの？
めんどくせえなもう。つかお前も荷物受け取りに来たなら作業服ぐらい着てこいよ。目立って仕方がねえだろうが。
Why are you asking questions?
私に言われたって知らないわよ。私はただここで荷物を受け取れって言われてきただけだもの。
ほら、これだよ。アルミのケースとリュックサック。
Just the gear we needed.
あら、ご親切にありがとう。
受け取ったらさっさとどっか行け。これ以上目立ちたくない。
Isn't that the fucking shit, man? I remember him. I just at the same time I don't. You know what I mean? You know when it's right on the tip of your tongue, and then you just kind of like fuck.
何も聞かないのね。
お前が荷物受け取るのが仕事なのと同じで、俺は荷物を届けるのが仕事だ。それ以外のことは聞かないのがルールだし、聞きたくもないね。
Isn't he the fucking driver guy? Fuck, man.
どこの誰が出したかもわからない上からの命令は、9029の荷物を指定の場所に届けろだ。それ以外はお前がどこの人間だろうが俺の知ったこっちゃない。
We're gonna be fucking using this.
そう。
というのは、まあ、建前だがな。事情は大体察してる。おもちゃが必要なんだろ。
We will.
さあ、それこそ私は荷物の中身が何なのかすら知らないわ。
It's a whole bunch of no one knows what the fuck's going on, but everyone knows what the fuck's going on.
まあ、細かいことはどうでもいい。9029にはよろしく言っといてくれ。
He's the fucking he is the driver man. You know, the fucking you guys know what I'm trying to say. The driver man. Like that's dude, when the brain stops working. With that parting remark, the man climbed back into his van and drove off down the street.
よろしくだって。よろしくって言われてもな。私今の人の名前も知らないのに。
Yeah, you do. Michiru had basically been telling the truth. She didn't know much, and she probably couldn't have explained the things she did know particularly well. Had that man been completely on the company's side, he might have taken her into custody as a suspected accomplice of Kazami Yuji Occupation Student Mark II. But they probably wouldn't have gained any accurate information from questioning her. Dude, that's the worst person to kidnap. And you'd be annoyed to death. Even if they subjected her to torture that could break a trained soldier. Or injected her with truth serum, it really wouldn't have mattered. Michiru didn't understand the plan and she couldn't tell them what she didn't know. It was a slightly unnerving thought, but maybe that was part of the reason the Thanatos system had chosen her for this specific mission.
私みたいな生き方って辛いと思う？いや、随分と楽に生きてるなって思うわ。だよね。
As she mumbled those words to herself in a self-deprecating tone of voice, Michiru hefted Yuji's surprisingly heavy rucksack onto her back, and then lifted up the hefty aluminum case. The handle dug sharply into her fingers. What the hell's inside this thing anyway? Oh, well. She was a bit curious, but it probably wasn't the best idea to open it up. Odds were there was some kind of gun in there, like a cult or whatever. Yeah. What is with her and this fucking cult? Not that she knew anything about that stuff, clearly, because you keep only referencing one type of gun. How am I going to explain this if I run into a policeman or something? Wee-woo? Trying her best not to think about it, she set off for the place where she'd be meeting with Amine. Everything with Machir is just fucking silly, dude, and I love it. Their rendezvous point was in the same ward, and hadn't looked that far away on the map. But Machir only managed to maintain a normal pace for the first 10 minutes or so. The main problem was the sheer weight of this aluminum case. Dude, she's carrying a rucksack and the fucking giant case. Like, come on. When she held it in one hand, the handle would bite painfully into her fingers, and her whole arm would eventually go numb. But then she tried to hold it with both hands. It was almost impossible to walk, constantly banging her legs into the thing. The best way was to periodically shift it from one hand to the other. After 15 minutes of this, she found herself putting the case down to take a breather every 10 steps or so. Starting to feel faint because of all the sweat she was shedding, she paused to buy a drink from a vending machine. But just as she was reaching the limits of her limited endurance, her eyes found a familiar pair of oversized breasts waiting in the distance. That's how you catch her, huh? And she teared up with the joy of a traveler who'd discovered an oasis. Fucking slams it on the ground.
お疲れ。どう？荷物無事に受け取れた？
ああ、なんか思ってたより簡単に受け取れたけど、ここまで運んでくるのが一番大変だった。つうか、有事のバカはよくこんなものを持って歩くわね。
Kinda.
まあ、有事の場合、40キロぐらいの荷物を背負って、山の中を20キロぐらい歩くのが仕事だからね。
Like this ain't shit for him.
思ったけど、軍人って絶対にマゾだよね。っていうか、そっちはどうなの？車は受け取ってきたの？
I want to see the fucking car, dude.
ああ、うん。
特装車ってどんな車？まさか戦車みたいなやつ？どこに止めたの？
I love how Amine's like, yeah, I found it all right.
いや、普通にあんたの後ろに止まってるじゃん。それだよ。
God, it's literally there.
後ろってこれのこと？
うん、そう。
Jesus. To be sure, there was a motor vehicle parked on the street behind Michiru. Its design was rather advanced in its way, but to her eyes it seemed as ominous and evil as a cursed artifact unearthed from an ancient tomb. She was sweating again, and it had nothing to do with the exercise she just endured.
もう一度聞くね。本当にこれなの？
Fucking Michiru just like pulls out some alcohol and just starts drinking like
だって他にないでしょ?
With a smile that seemed oddly sinister, Amine held up a leather keychain with the manufacturer's logo and let the keys jingle against each other. Hold on a second. Am I actually crying right now?
とりあえず荷物車の中に置いちゃいなよ。少し遅くなっちゃったけど、お昼のお弁当食べよっか。
うん。
I'm just accepting whatever's coming my way. Michiru had almost said something, but she chose to swallow her words instead. They traveled slowly down her throat, along with a wad of spit that felt like a rock. Lunch, yes. That sounded like a good idea. While she had tasty food in her mouth, at least, she could be happy. She could forget all about the bad things. And by the time she was finished, perhaps she'd be ready to face the prospect of getting into this thing. Please, Lunchbox, give me courage. With that silent, earnest entreaty, Matsushima Michiru began to eat. Dude, eating solves everything, man. Okinawa Prefecture, huh? Where are you taking me? Wars are fought by human beings, you're damn right they are. But on the battlefield, the decisions of individual people never carry much weight. It takes real courage to do the right thing. But for most dropouts and delinquents in the U.S. Marine Corps, courage was just another word for recklessness. Or so it had seemed to Millie Stanfield. Uh-oh. What?
なあミリー、まずは聞いてくれ。これはまずい。
Why am I... This is... Hold on. Can we... So... Face zoom in automatically, okay? So, you already know. This is how I see Millie first. I haven't seen her in so long. And this is the first time I see her. I don't even know.
女を信用しちゃダメだって。特に私みたいな女はね。
I'm assuming it was all a ploy. Dude, okay, so I was in fact recording that section because, you know, it didn't really seem like diddly was happening because it didn't. But it was too lewd. It was too, even everything was too lewd. I couldn't do it, man. I feel upset at myself, but it was all a ploy against this pilot guy. Just her weapon was the bag he'd left lying on the floor. The helmet inside was significantly larger and heavier than a normal one. They were in a bathroom stall, mind you. Smacked in the back of the head by a piece of equipment designed to protect him, the large pilot man lurched forward, then collapsed against the wall.
でないと大事なものを全部持っていかれて、大事なところを晒したまま発見される羽目になるんだ。
Damn, Millie. If only I could have shown that whole scene. It's fine. Ooh. Millie retrieved a few nylon zip ties from the pockets of the uniform she'd earlier tossed aside. These were used to organize the wires inside aircraft. Despite their thinness, they could resist a good 200 kilos of force. Hoisting the unconscious man up off the floor, she sat him down on the toilet, then tied his hands together behind his back and bound them to the water pipe. Oh. This all alone would prevent him from standing, but Millie didn't want him thrashing around noisily either. She tied his feet firmly together and then wrapped duct tape around them and the base of the toilet.
悪いな。悪いと思ってるから財布は抜かないでおいてやるし。あとはこれ。サービスな。
Don't take the wallet. Forcing the man's mouth fully open, she gagged him with the panties she just removed. Ah, perfect! The perfect ghetto present. And then wrapped the duct tape around his face to make sure they stayed in there. Does she have other panties? To replace those ones? If his buddies found him like this, he'd be a laughingstock for life. But that's how it goes. Maybe years and years down the road, he'd look back on this humiliation as something that helped him grow as a person.
替えのパンツ用意しておけばよかったな。
Oh, she doesn't have... I didn't think she'd actually bring it up. She does not, in fact, have a spare set of panties. Millie felt a bit exposed down there, but it wasn't anything she wasn't used to. When you put a tight pair of jeans on like this, sometimes you'd catch a few pubic hairs in the zipper. Ow. But fortunately enough, a pilot's uniform had at least a little room in the crotch. Grabbing the man's helmet, bag, and jacket, Millie turned and left the stall with a small smile on her face. Fucking knocked that dude out. She'd received the email only 2 days before. Ah, Jesus. The man she called Genie, who she'd never stopped loving, had been betrayed by his own employer and was now imprisoned in an underground facility. and her former comrade Robert Walson, had been the one to inform her. Fucking way to go. He'd also mentioned that I wasn't sure if it was a good idea to tell you honestly. The man clearly hasn't changed. His attempts at thoughtfulness were still awkward, and he still royally pissed her off. Basically, he was saying, it's blatantly obvious you still haven't gotten over him, so I was worried about how you might react. Had he actually been in front of her, Millie would have knocked a few of his teeth out. He had decided to tell her in the end, so she'd almost convinced herself not to hold it against him. But then he added that this was because you'd kill me if you found out after the fact, making her furious all over again. It was almost impressive in a way. No matter what he did or said, Robert Walson always managed to piss her off somehow. He's got the face. In any case, 11 hours ago, she'd received a follow-up message containing instructions from a mysterious person by the name Thanatos. Told you, everyone's pie. Fucking Millie had her fingers in her own pie, on her own pie at that point. Jesus Christ. The message hadn't contained any specifics. If she wanted to rescue Kazami Yuji, she had to swipe the first helicopter of the afternoon. Once it was in the air, she'd receive further instructions. That was the extent. Hey, she's flying. What she's gonna do? Swiping a helicopter from a base wasn't comparable to stealing a car from some parking lot. The consequences would be severe. On this subject, Thanatos had noticed that there's no reason we can't get you permission after the fact. The implication seemed to be that they could have an emergency flight order issued once she was in the air, like a belated approval for shore leave or something. But there was no telling if Thanatos would actually come through. Kazuki always comes through. What the hell do I care? If I give a damn about the consequences of my actions, I wouldn't have ended up in the Marines in the first place. She'd already knocked the pilot unconscious after doing... Man, she played that man like a fiddle. Playing off his lust. There wasn't much point stressing out about it for any longer. She had passed the point of no return. Just straight to steal this goddamn helicopter to save Kazami Yuji. Slipping on the man's WEP jacket, Millie put on his flight helmet and lowered the visor, then made her way to the ready room. As always, the day's schedule was posted on a whiteboard on the wall just outside the entrance. Lieutenant Alex P had been scrawled in the P1 column for the first flight of the afternoon, along with a small triangular mark. Come to think of it, he did make first lieutenant, didn't he? That punk's got some nerve. The usual tricks were still applicable, just like scribbling your name in the off-base duty logbook when you were about to sneak out. Changing the names on the board would help her make excuses later. Quickly erasing the man's name, Millie replaced it with her own, and then added the star symbol that indicated an emergency flight. Thanks to Daniel and Yuji, she'd gotten the hang of sneaking off base way back in her training period. This was all second nature to her now. I wasn't expecting to see to see Millie like right now. Had a feeling I'd see the crew again, just not yet. Now I just needed to get that thing into the air before the co-pilot shows up and gets in the front seat. Okay, this will be perfect. Turning to look into the hangar, she spotted a small group of mechanics clustered around one of the base's helicopters, preparing it for the first flight of the afternoon. Waiting patiently wasn't an option. She needed to get in the air ASAP. Unfortunately, there were 3 crew members to deal with. The crew chief, his assistant, and a junior tech. Knock them all out wasn't going to work. In situations like this, the best option was to go in aggressive and push your way to quick victory. Huh?
燃料の補給は終わってますが、武装がまだです。
緊急だ。武器はいらん。代わりに燃料を詰めるだけ詰め。230の増装を4つ。全部満タンだ。
Jesus Christ.
4つはオーバーペイです。重くて飛べませんよ。
飛べば軽くなる。ぐちゃぐちゃ言ってないでさっさとやれ。急ぎだと言っているだろ。
I mean, it's not coming in with not being armed, right? So that extra weight can go towards more fuel.
はい。
Damn.
よし。
She is going hard and heavy. Now she just had to park her behind in the cockpit before they started asking tricky questions. Once she was inside, nobody was going to poke their head in just to make small talk. Hurrying up the ramp, Millie placed her feet on the step built into the side of the helicopter and then stepped herself in one leg at a time, making sure not to bang her head on the canopy. Fucking whapped. Oh. Once she'd slid into her seat, she proceeded to check her torso harness, connect the G-suit hose, and confirm that the pistol in her leg holster had its safety on. She skipped the radio check, no reason to give herself away. The bird's internal tanks were full. Once the mechanics attached the drop tanks, she'd flipped on the main switch to on, switched the fuel line to pull from the external tanks, and tested the machine gun sights. So far, so good. She's looking real serious. Oh my god. She had a total of 4 fuel tanks now latched onto the bottom of her wings. Each one held 230 gallons of fuel. In total, they weighed 2,784 kilos. Combined with the helicopter itself, she was over 7.7 tons. Given that the machine was only rated for a max takeoff weight of 6.6 tons, it was seriously overloaded. Full ton. That said, the distance from Okinawa to Tokyo was a good 50 km. km at a cruising speed of 150 knots. Even if she disabled one of the 2 engines, the internal tank would last her 520 km. I don't know why I'm saying km. And at max speed, she'd run dry after 280. A simple bit of math was suggested. She was about 820 gallons short of making it to the city. But by replacing the stub-wing armaments with 4 of the biggest fuel tanks it could carry, she could squeeze in another 920 gallons. Dropping the empty tanks into the sea as she went would lighten her up considerably. Even with the extra drag and weight, it would be enough to get her to Tokyo with fuel to spare. Only problem was, that meant she'd have absolutely nothing in her weapons rack. We don't need it. It's fine. Get her in the air. Her only offense would be the 20mm Gatling cannon in the chin with a mere 750 rounds. She'd burn through that ammo in less than a minute if she held down the trigger. Under the circumstances, that wasn't actually reassuring. Then again, maybe it's for the best. Probably wouldn't go over too well if I started shooting off missiles in Japanese airspace. Yep, there it goes. I knew it was coming. We all knew. At this point, all she had to do was wait for the scheduled time and get her permission for takeoff. Yes, everything's according to plan. This just might actually work. Just as that vague thought was beginning to solidify into something like actual optimism, a siren rang out shrilly as if to mock her hopefulness. Dude, you shouldn't have said it in your brain. Oh. Nodding at the crew chief's orders, his assistant ran off toward the ready room. Damn, they found out already? You gotta just go. Just fucking go, man. This was not good. She didn't know the exact reason for that alarm going off, but it definitely meant bad news. She had her tanks, and the skids weren't locked to the ground. Was forcing takeoff an option? No. They still had her hooked up to the fuel truck and the power car. What now? Gritting her teeth in frustration, Millie reached for the gun in her leg holster. Oh my god. And in that moment, the assistant crew chief came running back from the ready room, his face white with shock.
大変です。パイロットがトイレで拘束されているのが発見されました。
Ah, shit. Blast him! No.
何？よく聞こえない。もっと大きな声で。
Yes, waste more time.
そこにいるパイロットは偽物です。エンジンを止めさせてください。
Man, you could have lived through this situation, but now you must die. Oh my
な
god.
んだと？
もうすぐ警備の増援がこちらに。
今すぐ起動車を外せ。
God damn.
やめろ。何が目的だ。こんなものを盗んで何をする気だ。
I gotta save my lover.
うるせえ。拳銃振り回しているうちに言うこと聞けこら。こいつの弾がなくなりゃ次は20ミリをぶっ放すぞ。
落ち着け。理由を説明してくれれば。
No, this takes too much time.
警備が来るまでの時間稼ぎのつもりか。もつまき散らしてえのかてめえ。
She'll do it. She'll go to all.
やめろ。
She'll go to all lengths. All of them.
さっさと起動車外せ。ぬっ殺す油虫。
いたぞ。こっちだ。
Uh-oh.
くそ。
Oh god. A security detail armed with automatic rifles had appeared in the distance behind the maintenance crew and was now running toward her. Things were going downhill real fast. She had to get into the air, even if it meant ripping free of the refueling hose and charging harness. But as Millie reached for the lever to close the canopy, there was a shower of sparks across the side of her helicopter. Oh
今す
boy.
ぐ機体から降りろ。次は当てるぞ。許可は出ている。
Guess you're shooting to kill, motherfuckers.
危ねえだろバーカ。
That's the point.
発砲したぞ。構わん。撃て。撃ち返せ。
She fucking shot back. Had she failed? If they capture her right now, well, she probably wasn't going to get off with a few takes in the brig. Might as well just roll the dice then. Yup.
ローターピッチを変えやがった。このまま強引に飛ぶ気か。撃て。撃ち落とせ。
She's gonna get out of here no matter what it takes. 5.56 millimeter pea shooters weren't gonna do much damage to a bird like this, of course. But if they calmed down and started aiming for the tail rotor, it might actually be a problem. Pulling back slightly on the collective lever, she eased herself upward, lifting her skids 40 centimeters off the ground. Then grabbed the cyclic and stepped on the anti-torque pedal, pointing the helicopter's nose at the soldiers to show them the barrel of its 20 millimeter machine gun. Problem was, the RPMs weren't where they needed to be. Something was dragging her down. Specifically the hose and the cables that tethered her to the equipment on the ground. This is so intense. If she tried to push her way up, they'd tilt her off balance and send her crashing to the ground. But just as she was beginning to seriously regret her recklessness, a large, shadowy figure appeared behind the soldiers. What the shit? Oh my god. My hero. The man seemed to have come out of nowhere, knocking the closest soldier to the ground with a single punch. This is true camaraderie. It's the fucking bush dogs, dude. He pinned him forcefully to the ground.
Eddie, あんたいつこっちに?
He's being the most hero you ever seen.
行けミリエナ。
Oh my god.
でも
事情は自分もロビーから聞いて知っている。後のことは任せていけ。
ありがとうエディ。
Fucking smile on my face, man. That's some true camaraderie. With a push on the collective and a gentle movement of the Millie jammed down on her anti-torque pedal. In response, the helicopter turned sharply in the air, twirling around the starter truck like a wire-controlled toy. As if fighting a strong diagonal wind from behind, she turned the tail while carefully controlling the load on its rotor blades. And surprisingly enough, The tethers quickly gave way. There we go. The scary part came after that. Well, because now you got to deal with the force. The helicopter lurched off balance like a kite that had broken free of its string. As the edges of its rotor blades drew closer and closer to the ground, Millie felt a cold jolt of fear run down her spine. No, you got this. Believe. I believe. She couldn't let herself panic. Over-controlling would only throw the helicopter even further off balance. She had to focus on her angle and the load of her rotors, not the lurching itself. Manipulating the systolic, she redistributed the load across her blades. Lowering the pitch lever brought her skids briefly down to the ground, but despite her best efforts, the helicopter proceeded to spin sharply in a circle. Use the force, Luke. Through the cockpit's canopy, she caught a glimpse of the gaping, frightened faces of the soldiers on the ground. They were clearly expecting her to crash. I'm not going down that easy, damn it. Swans might look elegant, but they're always pedaling furiously under the water of the surfaces of the water. Helicopters weren't any different. They might look like simple machines, but their pilots needed to manipulate the levers precisely. Every gust of wind meant you had to dance on your pedals. Few vehicles required such precision and decisiveness to control, and it was a particularly difficult thing to regain control once you started thrashing about like at a slow altitude. This close to the ground, your rate of descent and airspeed weren't relevant. The proximity warning system was useless. There was no time to think through the individual steps she needed to take. The human brain wasn't equipped to process the act of flying a machine like this. It all came down whether you had a feel for it. In the course of those long, brutal training sessions, as the trainees struggled to hold their machines steady in the violent winds above the deck, a few would develop the ability to control their craft on reflex alone. For these people, piloting a helicopter became as natural as moving their own arms and legs. And fortunately, Millie counted herself among the number. After a few agonizing moments, the Cobra center of gravity settled roughly halfway between the front and rear seats, and its wild movement stabilized. Whew! Oh, there we go. Now we have a non-shaky helicopter. By now, she'd risen perhaps 15 meters off the ground. Pressing her helmet up against the side of the canopy, she looked down at the growing crowd below. Some were holding fire extinguishers at the ready. Others were pointing their assault rifles in her general direction. Of course, they weren't about to shoot down a U.S. chopper over their own base. Given all the controversy about the V-22, the last thing anyone wanted was to give the local civilians a reason to kick up a fuss about their safety. If they decided to shoot her down, it wouldn't happen until she got the bird out over the sea. And she just had to trust that this Thanatos would intervene somehow before that happened. I believe. Easing the propellers into their normal cruising RPM, Millie turned the Cobra in the direction of Tokyo, then took a final glance back down at the base. The crowd was only growing larger. Just crashes right into the crowd, and oh my god. Near the front of the group, she could see Eddie being restrained by a number of security personnel.
悪いのよエディ。後であんたも必ず助けに来るからな。
Dude, his sacrifice is not going to be in vain. With a parting message the man had no way of hearing, but he can probably know. Millie turned her stolen helicopter and flew off toward her destination. Jesus fucking Christ. Oh god. I didn't expect that. I mean, the whole Millie thing. Especially the front part. The ploy, it was strong. And then it got even more intense so fast. Oh, Jesus Christ.